welcome to Taking the Myth, your topical, skeptical discussion show. I'm Stephen Knight, and joining me to provide some extra brain power is Iram Shazam. Iram, how you doing?
I'm great now that I've been christened Shazam.
That was highly amusing, I have to say. Maybe you can just explain what happened there.
I think there's just somebody on Twitter.
It's always the case, isn't it?
Yes, responding to my piece in the Sunday Times, and called me Iram Shazam.
I like it.
Yeah, it beats Mr. Ramzan. So I will take it. It makes me sound cool. It makes me sound like a member of a really alternative band or something like that.
A few notice board items. First thing I wanted to talk about is the Bradlaugh lecture in our home city. Well, my home city. You've been excommunicated. You've been tax-feared.
Oh my God.
You've been...
Oh my God.
Yeah. But on the 8th of September, between the hours of 2 in the afternoon and 7 in the evening at Manchester Art Gallery, beautiful place, is the Bradlaugh lecture. And there's going to be a talk by Geeta Sehgal on the rise of Hindu nationalism. So that's an event put on every year by the National Secular Society. It's named after Charles Bradlaugh, a very staunch and influential secularist of his day. You can actually see a portrait of his actually hung in the gallery there. Quite prominent place, actually. I was there last year for the Bradlaugh lecture. So I'm going to be there covering it. I'll be getting some video footage for the National Secular Society. So it will be online, but I would really suggest coming along. Tickets are only £10, and if you're a member, just a £5. So if you're a National Secular Society member, and why wouldn't you be, tickets are £5 and you can come and say hello to me. That's worth a £5, surely.
I'd suggest people go along and pelt eggs at you.
Right.
That will definitely be worth it.
I'm going to cut that out because some asshole...
Is that incitement?
It's incitement to violence. Hate crime. Anti-white hate crime. What have you become?
Just a snowflake.
Just lending yourself to those London hate crime statistics, Iram. Well, there's something else I want to bring up under notice board items. And again, I'm going to say I don't want to spend too long on this, maybe 5 minutes or so, but I can imagine this going on for a little bit longer. And that's Tommy Robinson and his appeal.
Tommy who? Tommy
Stephen Yaxley, 5 names Lennon. Yeah, he's been in the news again. I don't know, have you seen any of this? Has this been mentioned anywhere? I don't know if you've picked up on this developing story of our Tommy.
Well, I would, but you see, the mainstream media is so biased, right, that I haven't heard anything about it at all.
Okay, so speed run. Tommy Robinson, found in contempt of court last year in May, given a suspended sentence of 3 months, told if he did it again he'd go to jail. Fast forward a year later, contempt of court again, went straight to jail, sentenced to 13 months. It appears to me it was a cut and shut case. He's filmed himself being in contempt of court. Contempt of court carries a maximum sentence of 2 years and an unlimited fine. It seemed like everything was fine in terms of punishment and going to jail, etc. My only claim since this started is that the punishment doesn't seem extraordinary, and he was in contempt of court. Now, those things in my eyes haven't changed. However, he's won an appeal. Now, again, because he's won this appeal, there's so much misinformation flying around. His appeal has not had the conviction overturned in the sense that they found him innocent. His legal team haven't argued that he's not in contempt of court and the jury's agreed. They've argued that the swiftness at which he was jailed didn't allow for him to get proper representation, which could have produced more mitigating factors that could have affected his overall sentence. Now, that's a fair argument. I probably didn't pay as much attention to this argument as I should have because, like I say, he's pleaded guilty. The punishment seemed fine. So the appeal was successful and the judges agreed. So he will have to go to court again for the same crime. Now, his fans are talking about it as if he's been found innocent, which is strange. He hasn't.
No, it's just going to be heard before a different judge.
Yes.
That's what will change.
And the funny thing is, he could actually get a longer sentence. Nobody seems to be talking about that. The judge could actually review the evidence in more depth now and decide it's worthy of a longer sentence. They actually take into account when they're deciding length of sentence on this, the seriousness of the crimes of the case that was potentially jeopardised. And I think child rape is quite high up in the list of seriousness. So there's that. He's already pleaded guilty. He's on film doing it. So I can't see any outcome here where they're going to say, yeah, we were wrong. Off you go, you little scamp. We're sorry about that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if he'll be given like a longer sentence. He could be, but then he might not serve it all because he's already served some time. So it might just end up being suspended, or they'll deem that he's already served enough time anyway. But regardless, what this proves is that the system isn't necessarily against him. It's just that it actually works, because if it didn't work, he wouldn't have won his appeal.
Exactly.
He'd be languishing in prison right now. I just don't want to say anything more on the matter, because you just can't really win with people who are hardcore Tommy Robinson fans. They just don't want to hear anything other than Tommy's perfect and persecuted.
Yeah, so a few fairly quick points in summary. I'm not committed to the idea of him going to jail and serving time. I don't know how that's worked out. I'm not so sufficiently against Tommy Robinson that I'm saying throw him in jail, he should go to jail for this long. If the judge actually says, you know what, you've served enough time, we feel you've done your sentence, and they don't send him back to jail, I'm not going to have an issue with that. I'm going to be fine with that decision. What I don't think is going to happen is that he's going to be found innocent of contempt. My entire point throughout this entire thing is that he's guilty of contempt of court, and when people are guilty of contempt of court, they go to jail. In extreme cases, especially when they're suspended sentence. That's what's happened. So I'll be wrong completely and have to apologise and hold my hands up if his legal team at this next court appearance blow this out the water and somehow prove that he wasn't in contempt of court. Now, I imagine this defence would involve some sort of time machine, but we shall see. I mean, the argument in the appeal was made that because Tommy Robinson had admitted contempt, he was remorseful for what he had done, and he offered to delete the offending video, as soon as it was flagged to him. That means that the case should have been adjourned to a later time, because he was no longer a threat to that court case. He was cooperating, he'd understood the mistake, admitted it, and was working with the court system to not prejudice that case anymore. So the argument accepted by the appeal there was, well, yeah, because he was cooperating, he was no longer a threat to this case, he should have been given the time then to mount a proper defence at a later date. It should have been adjourned. Whereas some people might just be completely unhinged or hell-bent on exposing something. It might be in the public interest to jail them immediately because they're an ongoing continued risk to a court case. So the appeal actually said they understood why the judge acted in such haste. He wanted to protect the integrity of some really important ongoing cases, but they are going to hear it again. They're going to replay it, essentially. It's going to be a replay. Tommy Robinson, round 2. In the courts, contempt of court, where he's somehow got to, prove that he's not in contempt of court this time, because that, and you know what, I said I'd take it 5 minutes. This is my fault. I hold my hands up. But I watched a video of his when he got out, addressing the camera. He was complaining that he's going to have to go through this all again in a couple of months for the retrial. They're gonna make me do this all again, and I was thinking to myself, that's what you've appealed for.
Yeah.
That's what you were after. That was the whole point of your legal campaign, to get this appealed and retrialed. And now you're whinging that they are making you do it all over again. They didn't have to. You could have just left it and served the rest of your sentence. So he's kind of got what he wants, but's playing the victim again. And it just seems like there's no end to this money-making, credulity-exploiting machine that is the Free Tommy campaign.
Well, also, apparently he complained that he didn't get to watch TV.
Yeah.
I mean, was that a real letter of his?
Apparently.
Because if that's... Oh, my God.
I mean, he's Strictly Come Dancing on at the minute. Maybe that just...
It's starting soon.
Okay, so he can't even claim humanitarian grounds on the fact that Strictly Come Dancing was on and he was
but Love Island was on.
Ah, well, then maybe if he's played the Love Island angle, he might have a strong case. I mean, to be honest, I imagine probably being made to watch Love Island is probably worse than solitary confinement.
Yeah, I know which one I'd prefer.
So there is an issue as well of Tommy, because of how notorious he is, of being under sincere and genuine threat of physical violence in prison, and he's often placed in solitary confinement for his own protection. Now, that's not ideal, is it? He's being punished and penalised because he may be assaulted or killed or maimed or else. This fear is genuine as far as I'm concerned. So there's something to be said there, but I don't know what the solution is. I don't know what you can do apart from separate somebody from the general population if the general population is hell-bent on causing them harm. So that's a difficult situation to be in, one that's probably not his own making. Well, definitely isn't his own making. So we'll know more about this when the appeal happens. If he gets found innocent of a contempt of court, I'll be embarrassed as anything. I'll hold my hand up and I'll say, yeah, I've got this one wrong. Can't see it happening just yet. It's going to be on my gravestone, that, isn't it? Stephen Knight. Can't see it happening. Okay, so I think that's the Tommy Robinson news for 1 week. I want to put something to you actually, and just let you spill your stream of consciousness on this topic. I want to know what you think about it.
Right.
How it pertains to you, and that's this idea of organ donation in the UK. It's just been announced due to very strong campaigning by Humanists. I think the British Humanist Society was involved, now rebranded to Humanist UK, I should say, to get organ donation a default thing by 2020. So rather than you filling in a form with a driving license or going online to say you're going to be an organ donor, you'll be automatically enrolled when you're a certain age. And if you're not happy with that, you have to take the action of opting out the system, because there's a massive shortage of organ donors in the UK. There's people on huge waiting lists. So many people die every year who have perfectly good working organs who aren't on the register. So where do you fall on, one, the idea of giving up your vital organs after you kick the bucket, and two, making that a default position that you have to opt out of? Give me your lungs. I think that's how they word it.
Yeah, I don't really know where I stand on the issue. I can see arguments for both sides. I mean, it's probably easier to make it opt out, because I can just imagine how difficult it must be for people to have to go around and register for it, and not everyone gets around to it. Whereas if you make it opt out, I guess it's easier and it saves a lot of hassle trying to find organs, etc. But then again, what about people's rights over their own body and organs, stuff like that? I mean, what if people object on religious grounds, for example? I know what you're going to say to that, but there's also that, how do people feel about their body being used in that way after they've died? I mean, for me, it's not a problem. Me personally, I wouldn't mind. When I'm dead, I'm dead. They can chop my body off and take all my bits.
What about before you're dead?
I think I would frown upon that.
Well, not if they took your eyes.
That's a good point. But I think it's
tricky.
It's a little bit of a tricky one. Yeah.
I have quite paradoxical views on this, given my anti-religious slants. I'm an organ donor. I don't care basically what happens to my organs when I've gone. There's not a moment's anxiety about that for me. It doesn't bother me one bit. However, I'm very sensitive to the idea of the government being the decider of what happens to that after you're dead by default, and you having to opt out of it. I think it makes me uneasy. I understand why. I understand how many lives it's going to save. I understand that, but it just makes me uneasy about how people feel. It's my feeling on this that whatever you decide is right for your body and organs is the right decision. That's
Do you know what's funny though? I reckon if they'd made it, if it was opt out, I reckon there'll be so many, say, religious people, or even other people who disagree on the grounds of personal autonomy and etc. There'll be like such a mass rush to opt out, and that's ironic because it takes such a long time and effort to get people to even sign up to register, and yet when this happens, I reckon we'll see so many people opting out in a way we haven't seen them registering, if that makes sense. That's
an interesting thought. I mean, I suppose there's a few statistics out there that suggest that a lot of people who would be keen on the idea of opting in haven't. So I mean, I suppose it would catch them lazy arses, I suppose.
Well,
so they can't donate
too
their
lazy,
arse. You don't get their arse because the arse is too lazy. No one wants the arse of these people. So I don't know. I mean, it's one of them things as well where I think, if I'm not mistaken, I might just be talking through my ass all of a sudden, but I think your family can actually veto your desires anyway.
So what's the point?
Well, I think what this recommend and what they suggest is if you've made the decision to opt in and you feel strongly about it, they encourage you to speak to your family about it, outline your wishes, let them know what you think, so that when the time comes...
I'm sorry, no, it shouldn't. If that person has already expressed strongly that they want to donate or whatever they want after they're dead, then it shouldn't be the family's right. I mean, that's probably the biggest. I was reading before that the family refusal is the biggest obstacle to the donation.
Yeah.
I mean, I know like most of them probably will agree, but what about when they're not on the register? I reckon not many will agree because they'll be too upset to say, yeah, go on, take out my dead wife's heart and lungs. It's just...
Sounds like a divorce settlement.
Yeah. I think maybe in that case then I can see the logic for making it opt out, because then if people already know it's going to happen when they die, where their loved one dies, then I guess it makes it easier then. And then it's up to the burden should be on that person then to opt out. And then also, there's so many South Asian people who wait for so long for organ donation because there's not as many Asian donors on the list.
I think blood donation might be on there as well. Yeah, that's a shame.
Blood is the same. I think it would make things a lot easier and quicker if people knew that.
I mean, this is wrapped up with concerns about the afterlife as well. I always thought this was very funny because you get a lot of people who believe in heaven or an afterlife or something who still want to do something good in terms of give their organs up, but you can sort of select which organs, and they're very... I've spoke to people who are very reluctant to tick the box about eyes because they've got this fear that they'll be blind in the afterlife. And I'm sort of like, well, do you not want to fucking breathe either? You're happy to give up your lungs, you're gasping and dying and suffocating, but you can see everything really well.
Yeah, well, that's...
I mean, this is a strange kind of logic to it, yeah.
Yeah, I think the only thing that would deter me is just this idea that when you die, your body just belongs to the state.
Yeah.
They can do what they want with it. I mean, I don't feel that strongly about the issue.
True.
I think it's probably on the balance of probabilities, it's probably better to have the opt-out option.
Yeah.
I think it'll probably save more lives in the long run.
It's a change, isn't it? It's progress of a sort, and I think people will slowly start coming around to the idea, and it'll instigate a discussion, and more people will speak about it openly and relay their wishes to their family in the process. So, on balance, I think you're right.
Yeah, I think most people nowadays are open to the idea of organ donation anyway. I think the only ones that aren't are probably maybe religious minorities and families of victims who, don't want that burden on their shoulders. And obviously they're probably more likely to say no to it after that person has died. But on the whole, I think more people agree with it and are happy for it.
Dear listeners, if you're an organ donor, let us know. You can tweet me at gspellchecker and Iram at Iram_Ramzan, not Shazam, Ramzan. Let us know if you're for or against the mandatory opting out coming in 2020.
I need some new eyes, by the way.
Iram needs some 2020 vision in 2020 for Iram.
I like that.
All right, so I think it might be worth touching a little bit on the latest Westminster quote-unquote terrorist attack. I mean, I'm saying quote-unquote terrorist attack because the suspect has been charged, I believe, with terrorism, or they're investigating his terrorism.
No, he's not been charged.
He's been arrested,
yet.
But they're investigating terrorism. Yeah. I have to be very careful what I say here.
Yeah, he's not been charged, so we can say anything.
The nonce. No, can't say that. Can't say that. That's a different court case altogether. So it's happened before, a car attack at Westminster, and the police are on high alert They've got, they've been working on their response rates, the armed response. And I'll read the headline from Sky News: Westminster terror crash, suspect Sally Cater was in London to get Sudanese visa. So this is a gentleman born in Sudan. He's actually British, got British citizenship, and that's apparently why he was in London. Now, the video of him crashing is very strange. He looks deliberate but peculiar at the same time. He doesn't appear to be slowing down. Goes right into a barrier in Westminster. I don't know what's happened. This is really strange. But obviously we have to. I mean, the armed response was there within minutes with guns, getting him out the car because, it's the House of Parliament. It's a very, very high-ranking target for political activism and/or terrorism for obvious reasons. So they have to treat it as terrorism. This chap's not cooperating, as far as I know. What are your thoughts? Just give me some wild, crazy assumptions and conspiracies here, and just throw them out there.
I think we should deport all Muslims.
All Muslims need to go. Check.
And they should go back to Sharia stance.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm open-minded on this. If I find out that this guy's some radical Islamic loon who's just not very competent, I won't be surprised. I won't be surprised if I find out he's just not a particularly great driver. I probably won't be surprised with that either. So I'll see where the facts lead on this. I'm not wedded to any outcome.
I think, it's hard to say exactly what it is right now because we don't know that many details, but some of the details seem quite peculiar that we do know. So he hired the car, drove it from Birmingham to London, and he was in the Tottenham Court Road area for hours, and then he decides to set off at rush hour and then just crashed into the barrier like an idiot. And it just, thankfully there weren't any deaths.
Yeah.
Nothing really bad. It was quite
a few cyclists and pedestrians were hit as well. I forgot to mention that. So it wasn't a case of he's just gone into the barrier. He's hit a few pedestrians and cyclists, like you've just mentioned. No serious injury. Well, there was a few serious. There was one serious injury apparently, but none of them were considered life-threatening, which is good news.
Which is good, yeah. I think that's probably. It could have been so much worse if like it had been last year.
Worst terrorist ever?
Hashtag, yeah.
This is
probably
Four Lions level of planning.
It might not be a terrorist after all, but because of the area, because of the nature of the incident,
yeah,
they can't rule it out, and police are treating it as terror related.
And the thing is,
it did appear to be.
They will rule it out. If it's not terror, they will rule it out. If they do establish a political or religious motive, that'll be revealed as well. So it's not. I think this is responsible. You have to take this seriously until you don't. So we'll see how that goes. It's worth pointing out that we're recording this at 20 to 9 in the evening on the 15th of August. So by the time I get this edited and out, we may have a full picture, and this is completely redundant anyway. So
and ignore us.
Ignore us. Hi from the past. Hope you're enjoying the future. So here's something that I know you'll be dying to get your teeth into. And I'll read you a headline from The Telegraph, which says, majority of Britons say Boris Johnson should not be punished for burqa comments, according to a poll. Now, what is it Boris Johnson said about the burqa? And what is the burqa?
Well, I always get slightly annoyed when people just say the burqa because it's a slightly different garment.
It's a niqab.
Yeah, it's a niqab. But to be fair, a lot of people even sort of in the subcontinent call it a burqa because anything that's covering the face is a burqa. So, the two can sometimes be interchangeable. So, not that bothered.
Is it splitting hairs, really? Someone just trying to... it's technically correct, but is it pedantry every time someone brings that up, do you think? 'Cause I've seen a lot of that this week. Oh, actually, it's the niqab. Well, it still looks like a fucking letterbox, and that's the issue.
Right, oh my God.
Racist. Well...
my God.
Yeah, so... But these are the comments that got Boris Johnson in trouble, aren't they?
They are. So basically, he wrote an article criticising the Danish ban on the burqa and said, even though it's ridiculous, it makes women look like letterboxes and bank robbers, we shouldn't ban it. We should be free to mock it, but in a liberal society, you put up with stuff like this. And people just heard Letterboxd and bank robbers bit and just went absolutely ballistic because it's the silly season when Parliament is in recess. And I think if Boris Johnson had made these comments at another time, they would have been glossed over. But instead, we've had just over a week of non-stop hysteria and comments and all these niqabis going on TV and asking, do I look oppressed to you? Well, I don't know. I can't see your face. Can't see.
Can you take the letter out your mouth? I can't hear you. You're mumbling. I can't. That's it now for me. It's forever the letterbox, thanks to Boris. So, I mean, like...
I'm sorry, it doesn't look like a letterbox because, you know, like, letterbox is at least a bit more colourful.
Yeah, red. In the UK. So, I mean, like you just pointed out at the start of your summary there, Boris Johnson's actually in favour of the right of women to choose. So what we're arguing here really is the right to criticise the way this garment looks. I mean, that's all he did. He didn't even scratch... He said the obvious thing that any child can see. He didn't even scratch the surface of mandatory veiling in plenty of Muslim majority countries and the societal pressures here in the UK and conservative Muslim communities to force women to wear the veil or at least pressurise them to. So we're not even getting our trousers off on this conversation, are we? It's just beyond the pale for him to mention how silly it is from an aesthetic point of view. I don't understand why that's off the table. I take the piss out of people with tie-dye jeans on.
Who the fuck wears
exactly?
tie-dye?
And if you find them, they should be ridiculed mercilessly.
Oh, but he was punching down. He was mocking these poor women who, even if they're oppressed, we should be targeting those who are oppressing, not the women looking like letterboxes.
You could say it was a first-class jibe.
Oh,
yeah.
This is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, for fuck's sake, we've had The Handmaid's Tale on here in the UK, Channel 4, and every feminist is obsessed with it and how, oh, look, The Handmaid's Tale could soon become a reality. For those who don't know what The Handmaid's Tale is, it's a dystopia set in America where Christian fundamentalists have taken over and women are just reduced to mothers and like sex slaves basically, and the women completely cover up. They don't have their own rights, etc. And then some people were like, oh, this could soon become a reality. Well, it fucking is a reality. It's a reality for so many women around the world already. And this is just what really pisses me off sometimes about white non-Muslim feminists, that you have some of these articles in Vogue and Cosmo and Stylist about, oh, my hijab, my niqab, let me explain about the burqa to you. And you just think, so while you're all arguing about how you all want the perfect orgasm, you're advocating Muslim women to be wearing this horrendous garment, which is oppressive and it's a sign of male oppression. It's just disgusting.
Yeah.
It is. It's an abomination, and it stands for everything that's against women's rights. I mean, women in this country fought for so many decades and centuries to wear what they want, and that choice is denied to so many. And I get it that there are some women who do choose to wear the niqab, I get that, but how free is that choice when they've been conditioned over years to cover up and be modest, and if they're not, they're dirty, they're impure, they're like unwrapped lollipops with flies buzzing around them. And also the niqab and the black veil, specifically the black dress code as well, it's a dress code of political and fundamentalist Islam, and that's what makes people feel really, really uneasy about it.
Yeah, I agree, and this is a massive feminist issue, and it's an obvious one, yet the left go missing. In fact, the left have been using this as a political football to attack the Tories. I mean, you don't need many reasons to attack the Tories, to be fair. But I mean, chief leftist final boss of the underrealm, Owen Jones, has been particularly busy on this. I imagine because it's school break at the minute, he's not in class, so he can just spend all his time on Twitter. But he sent a tweet that he's since deleted. He said, "Will Boris Johnson be disciplined if he refuses to apologise?" And I responded with, "You can always count on prominent leftists to go to bat for the patriarchy and misogyny just so long as it's Islamic," which is very snotty, but I think it's fair. Now, he replied by saying that misogyny is telling women what they have to wear. And as you just pointed out, Boris Johnson's not doing that at all, is he?
No, he's not. I mean, he just did that very, very liberal thing where, yes, you can poke fun of it, but at the same time, he defended the right for women to dress as they want. And he even said, he was actually in that piece, he was actually quite mocking of the Danish people. I don't see the Danes complaining about the way they're portrayed in his article. And I'm guessing most people didn't even read it because most of it is behind a paywall as well, because a lot of Telegraph articles are now premium only. So you have to subscribe or buy the paper in order to read it. And what's funny is, do you remember a couple of years ago when Ken Clark came, I don't know when he said the comments, but he said that anyone in court should have to remove it. And there wasn't that much outrage, and in fact Anna Soubry at the time defended his comments and said it was horrible. And then a couple of days ago on Twitter she was saying, oh, this has led, he's causing Islamophobia and stuff. And I thought, well, why wasn't Ken Clark doing the same? What about Jack Straw when he made similar comments? God knows how many years ago now, where he said if a woman came to his constituency wearing a veil, he would ask them to remove it so that he could at least communicate with them properly. And then he had the nerve to say Boris has gone too far, and you think, what? And you didn't go too far yourself? I just think this was more of a case of playing the man rather than the actual argument. Because if somebody else had said them, there would have been a better response and a more sort of nuanced debate around it. And a lot of the people are forgetting as well with this topic is that there are so many people of Muslim backgrounds, practicing or not, who absolutely hate it and what it stands for. It's seen as a very extreme decision to take as well. And conveniently those voices are being forgotten. Instead, we have all these niqabis coming on TV and talking about how great it is to wear it and how to go skydiving as well. I just think, you do not fucking go skydiving wearing that thing. Do not be ridiculous. And it inhibits your movements. I mean, I've seen it so many times, like in London and in Manchester, where there's a Muslim couple and it's summer, and the guy's wearing a t-shirt and shorts, and the woman next to him is wearing these big black heavy robes that are not comfortable in the heat at all. And you just think, did she really want to dress like that in the heat? She's got to be wishing, I wish I could take this off and just wear like a nice summery dress or something, but she can't. But he gets to, I'll tell you, there was this one time when I was in Istanbul, and there was a table next to mine while I was having lunch, and they were from the Gulf, and they were a family. They might have been from Saudi, I don't know, but they looked like they were from that area. And the man, this middle-aged man, had his shirt nearly completely unbuttoned, so I could see his fat, hairy, bloody, greasy stomach hanging out, right? No one wants to see that. And his wife next to him...
Get him in a burqa immediately.
Yes, yeah, they should have swapped the outfits. Yeah. She was wearing a burqa, and she was struggling to eat when they had the food, and he's there just munching away, because obviously they don't give a shit about what their woman's going through. But, you know, she sat there struggling to eat, trying to shift this veil aside. And in the end, she kind of gave up and kind of tossed the face covering aside. And, you know, we kind of just shared.
What a whore.
I know, you know, if she was in Saudi Arabia, I'm telling you now.
How many lashes?
Yeah. But it just goes to show you, it's like, men would not put up with something like that, but they make their women go through it. And anyone arguing that it's not misogynist, what I would say to them is are men wearing burqas? Are men covering up like that? Are men having to suffer through that? No, they're not. It is misogynist because it's only women that wear it. And there are women who wear the burqa, who, you know, they claim, oh, this is nothing to do with men. This is just me getting closer to God. Well, why is a man not wearing a burqa to get closer to God? And why is it only worn around women? Around men. Why do you only wear it around men then? And it's just another sign of male ownership. It predates Islam, but was adopted by some on the very conservative and very extreme end of Islam. And the concept behind the veiling is a sign of male ownership, that, you know, male sexual jealousy. They cover the women that they supposedly own, and anyone who they don't own can go around naked if they wish. And that's what the rules used to be like in certain parts of the world, where, say, whores were not allowed to cover up or veil themselves, whereas women of higher statuses, they had to be covered up. And I think that's why it was adopted by these extreme people on like the extreme side of Islam, because they saw it as a way of raising their status, but again, another way of showing their loyalty to men. It all just boils down to their relationship to men, and it is basically misogynist and patriarchal at the end of the day. And I get that people have a choice in what to wear, that's fine, but we shouldn't be encouraging it either, and feminists should not be encouraging it either.
Well, I mean, you look at the left. I mean, they're if you were to put this in any other context, you think of any other group that wasn't considered by the left to be brown or an ethnic minority that was enforcing this, or large scores of the women within that community were wearing garments of this, they would be ridiculed, they would be protests, it'd be the left's pet issue. If some white, ideologically motivated cult, predominantly white, was enforcing this on the women within that community, the left wouldn't shut up about it, and rightly so. But because it's Muslims, we mustn't go there, we mustn't criticise, we mustn't point out the obvious. So it's hypocrisy. I mean, this should be, I think, the hot topic within feminist movements, but they're actually going to bat for it. And they're not only are they going to bat for it, they're doing it under the guise of progressivism and human rights and women's rights and liberalism. They're saying they're fighting for this woman's right to do what they want. And obviously, I believe you can do that and make the larger point about how oppressive and patriarchal this garment is, both in appearance and essence.
Exactly. And you know, I've seen, you know, again, people on the left defending it, but, you know, they're always going on about the far right this and the far right that. But this is far right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't this extreme?
Yeah.
And
the far right do tend to force their men, to be fair, for some balance, they do tend to force all their men to be bald and overweight. So maybe we can look into that misandry of the far right. Who's enforcing this follicular tyranny and this all-round globular oppression of middle-aged white men on the far right here? I think that's the bigger issue in 2018 Britain.
I think it's the BBC.
It's the BBC. Well, I just want to end this, unless you've got something else to add, but Majid Nawaz made a very good comment via his Facebook, which I shall read. He's produced a picture of a woman in a niqab, not a burqa, a niqab. And his comments are thus: "This is the uniform of medieval patriarchal tyranny. It victim blames women for their beauty, Where this is enforced, it symbolises violent misogyny. I'm not advocating banning this monstrosity, but I refuse to defend it. It deserves to be ridiculed, not the women inside it. Women defending this have Stockholm Syndrome. Liberals defending this are akin to conservatives defending the Confederate flag. It is not racist to challenge religion, which is an idea, not a race. It is our civic duty. It is not offensive to remind everyone that it isn't normal. It is offensive to advocate for this to become normalised. Oh, and blessed be the fruit.
Exactly. And that was a reference to The Handmaid's Tale, because everyone's going on and on about it and what it means for feminism, but they say nothing about this, and it's just outrageous. Because it does. That's what the veil does. It does victim blame. It tells women to cover their beauty because men can't control themselves. How on earth that is feminist? I don't know.
All right, so I think it may be time for the Aslan Awards.
There's this misconception that people derive their values from their scriptures.
Who goes to hell?
Gays, fags, hundreds and hundreds of Jews.
You identify yourself as gay. Why do you then choose to be a Muslim when it says explicitly in Judeo-Christian tradition that is prohibited?
There's this misconception that people derive their values from their scripture.
The Aslans.
The Aslan Award is an award given to an apologist spouting lies and nonsense. Should be lies and or nonsense, really, but that'd be the Aslan Awards, and it doesn't quite have the same ring to it. But I have a juicy contender. He's got a cute little white beard, softly spoken, gentle voice. He's everyone's favourite granddad. It's Jeremy Corbyn.
Oh, I was going to say Rolf Harris.
Yeah. He's in trouble for different reasons.
Yes, he is.
Yes, he is. Jeremy Corbyn, leader of the opposition. I say opposition. I can't back that up with any sort of facts, but he's the leader of the Labour Party. Frequently finds himself in tricky spots associated with, anti-West fascist, anti-Semites and the like. Seems to always manage to forge allegiances with people from Hamas and Hezbollah. Doesn't tend to turn up for the conferences about ultra-Zionism, strangely. Not seen him break bread with any ultra-Orthodox Zionists. That never tends to happen. I don't know what that's about. But the latest scandal is that he has been pictured laying a wreath in Tunisia, and it's allegedly, or which I think's since been confirmed, at a memorial for people involved in the Munich massacres in the 70s of the Munich Olympic athletes, the Jews slaughtered by Palestinian terrorists there, mutilated. In fact, some of the details of that are really quite horrendous if you do some digging on it.
Watch the movie.
That's a wonderful film. I think that's up there with Schindler's. I mean, when I say wonderful film, it's not like a feel good Friday night flick that you can just throw on with a bowl of popcorn and watch Eric Bana get his due on. That's not that kind of movie, but it's very, very, very powerful stuff. I think it's up there with Schindler's List, which is a bold statement, but it's
it's really made. It was really well made.
Yeah,
really, really well made. I feel really sorry for Corbyn. I mean, everywhere he goes, he ends up just happens to be next to a terrorist or a terrorist sympathiser. I mean, why are they picking on Corbyn like that?
Can't get a break. Can't get a break, them.
Just can't. It's a conspiracy. I'm telling you that it's a BBC conspiracy.
Yeah. So a couple,
and they're all out to get him.
They're all out to get him. A couple of points on this. A lot of people are trying to create arguments based on technicalities. They're saying that the terrorists involved in the Munich terrorist attacks are actually buried in Libya or somewhere else. I can't remember where. So therefore, he was not honouring the graves of the terrorist attackers. But that's not the claim. The memorials are for the organisers, the alleged organisers of the plot. That's who they're saying is being honoured by this wreath. And now the problem is Jeremy Corbyn played a Trump hand, as far as I can see. He was playing top trumps. That's what he was doing. It was a case of when he was questioned on it, he then feigned ignorance of it after images arrived to show that he was actually there doing the things he said he was. Then he changed his story again and again and again. And what's particularly striking to me about this is not that he's being a typical lying politician. It's that his supporters, who always throw out the slogan that Jeremy is an honest man, are just accepting what he's saying. He's now got this Trump factor where he's very comparable to Trump in a lot of ways, not in terms of character or intelligence or, danger or threat. Obviously, Jeremy Corbyn's not got any power. But the fact that he can run a platform on very populist ideas, and it doesn't matter what he says or does or who he's associated with or the comments that he comes out with, his staunchest followers remain loyal. So I don't know what that means for future elections in Great Britain. Could we be seeing a future prime minister based on the populist power of JC, our Jesus Christ of the Labour Party?
Well, we are seeing populists everywhere. We have Trump, we have Modi in India, and then we also have Imran Khan now in Pakistan.
Yeah.
I think it's just seems to be a global phenomenon. People, I don't know, people are going crazy. They want crazy people in power. I can't see Corbyn winning, but then, you never know, I guess. But I wouldn't say all his followers are completely loyal to the core, because I know someone who did support Corbyn at the start, and she told me, she was like, what on earth has happened to Jeremy Corbyn? She's like, I can't.
Don't out her on the show. They'll send her straight to the gulag.
No, I'm not going to out her, but she was just saying, what a disappointment he's been. I definitely won't be voting for him again. And there are people not sort of leaving the party now, and you just wonder why it took them that long, because this has been happening for years now, ever since he became Labour leader. It's just been one thing after another, and this latest incident of him laying a wreath, you just have to put it in context with all the other things he's done, with all the accusations of anti-Semitism, etc. It just, and I think some of the problem is that his staunchest followers really don't care, because they do think that way, and also because they don't see it as an important issue. They just want to get the bankers in it because they robbed our country, as Owen Jones said.
My God, that is every time you'll say morning Owen, and they'll be like, well, what about the bankers? It's like, he does, fucking hell.
He was on Sunday Morning Live talking about the burqa and the ban, and then within 2 minutes he's like, what we should be focusing on, right, is the bankers that run this country. And even the presenter was like, okay, Owen, all right, give it a rest.
But that's populist. Stop. Everyone's going to clap because, hang a minute, the bankers, who are they? Oh, they're the rich people who fuck us off. Oh yeah, I can get on board with that. But can we also talk about this other issue?
What? Go live in a socialist country then. Go live in
Venezuela.
Go live in bloody Venezuela.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not real socialism, is it?
Real socialism and communism's never been tried, apparently. So I've been told repeatedly, over and over and over and over again. So I can't stand Jeremy Corbyn, and I think his failures and flaws are pretty obvious. And it's like when you question him, why is he there laying a wreath at the memorials of terrorists? He answers in a vague sound bites, like he'll say something like, I was there to honour everyone who died, who dies in acts of terrorism. Everyone. I mean, that's not the place to honour everyone who dies in acts of terrorism. He's not stumbling, he's not opening his front door and people are throwing him in the back of a car and wheeling him out. You know what I mean? He's putting himself in these situations on purpose. People keep pointing out the parallels between Saudi Arabia and the current government, in that we have, weapons deals with them and various other things, and that's true, and that is a blight on this country. However, we deal with Saudi Arabia because we have to. They're a massive economic and political force that affects this country. We have to deal with them. Jeremy Corbyn deals with these really horrible and savoury groups and people because he wants to, and that's the difference.
I mean, I can't see anything changing. It's one thing after another for the Labour Party and Corbyn and the people behind Corbyn as well. I mean, you have bloody shameless Milne from The Guardian running his media campaign. Maybe that's what he's the one who wrote the "I was present but not involved" quote.
Someone tweeted out that Corbyn was there but didn't inhale the wreath, which I thought was very clever. Yeah.
It's brilliant.
So I think Corbyn's very popular with a certain demographic, but I seem to think that certain demographics got a lid that they will reach or should reach. And I think if you want to win elections, Corbyn's got to go. That's my gut feeling, but obviously, you know, the Tory party aren't doing particularly well. There's plenty of reasons to want change, so that might factor into it as well. So I was very, at the last elections, I was very confident that Corbyn wasn't getting in. I thought, I've said that he'll never be Prime Minister before. I'm hedging my bets a little bit more nowadays. I'm kind of, since Trump's been elected, I've realised it's a good idea not to deal in absolutes when it comes to politics.
No, you can't.
I can't change
really
my
predict
mind.
These
All right, so go ahead.
I think it's just because of the whole Brexit thing. You just never know how it's going to go for Theresa May either, and I don't think she's that popular either.
No.
So we'll have to wait and see.
All right, shall we head to Twitter and see if anyone sent us any questions?
We do have some. The arrest of women's rights activist Summer Badawi.
Oh, is that Raif Badawi's sister?
Yes.
Okay.
Summer yeah.
I'll be honest, I don't know anything about that, so thanks for bringing that up. I will look into it. I don't know if you know anything about it.
I don't. This is the first I've heard about it. Is that the reason why there's all this hoo-ha with Canada?
I don't know. I mean, it might be worth talking about that picture doing the rounds of the day of the aircraft heading towards Canadian landmarks. Now, I'm in two minds about this, and I appreciate and see what the iconography of that is, and I understand why people would understand it that way. I'm not entirely convinced it was intentional, I have to say. And, you don't have to give me a reason to attack or hate Saudi Arabia, but looking at that, I just think it was some really ill thought out piece of propaganda. I'm not entirely sure they were saying, listen up, if you carry on, we're going to 9/11 the shit out of you. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Oh my God, I saw that and I immediately had the opposite opinion of you.
Yeah.
It was who the hell designed that?
Yeah.
I don't know. It was awful.
Somebody's getting lashed in the marketing department, that's for sure.
Oh, but somebody did get beheaded or crucified, I think, while Saudi was berating Canada for speaking out against human rights violations.
What a joke. I think I've got a few questions on Facebook. Jan Skelton, always nice to hear from Jan. She's asked, if you criticise or ridicule a religious garment, is that the same as inciting hatred or violence against people who wear the garment?
I've had people ask me, like, oh, would we make fun of Orthodox Jewish hats?
Yes. Silly hats.
Oh my God. You're anti-Semitic.
Honestly, there's a very heavy Jewish area in Manchester, as you know, Cheetham Hill. There's a few, these Prestwich, Cheetham Hill, places like that, and they're very Orthodox Jews, wear the black garments, black hats, and on occasion walk across the road whilst you're driving with their back to traffic. And I don't know if they're going for a Darwin Award, but at night time wearing black, not looking at the road and walking across is a recipe for disaster. So that's my criticism of that particular dress code and or road sense.
Why did the Jew
cross the road? Not for a bacon sandwich. We can rule that out. We can rule that out straight away. See, here I am mocking not only Jewish Orthodox clothing, but Jewish dogma and sensibilities, and there is nothing wrong with that. It depends how you're doing it. And what's happening here as well is people are saying ridicule's the same as inciting violence, because they want to turn language into violence. They want to do that so that they can make a better argument. They will say it's violent almost. It's almost on akin with violence to criticise the religious garment because it inspires or incites violence. And I don't think people who are going to violently attack women in burqas are waiting for me to make a joke about the burqa before they do that. I don't think anyone's going to hear a comedian make a glib joke about a religious garment and think, well, now I've got the all clear. I wasn't into that whole violence against women unprovoked aspect, but that one-liner sold it to me. Off I go, smacking Muslims. That just doesn't happen. That isn't how it works. People randomly attacking women because of what they're wearing is a massive problem, but it's not related to people criticising the garments and or making jokes about it. So my answer is no on that, Jan. I understand the concern. I just think there's a bigger issue here, and I think it's almost like a de facto blasphemy law to say this one garment in particular you can't criticise it or talk about it or have an opinion on it. I mean, have we all got to stay neutral, or worse than that, have we got to pretend it's good? What are the rules?
I know. I mean, people from within those own communities take the piss. I mean, I actually feel sorry for Jewish Orthodox women, because even when it's hot, they have to wear really thick black tights and, you know, cover up completely as well. I mean, have you worn tights in the summer, Stephen?
Not in the summer.
Yeah. Well, then you won't know how fucking uncomfortable they are. It's like your legs are on fire.
Yeah.
It's not comfortable at all. And you just think, if they had a choice, would they actually wear stuff like that? Not really.
Don't be an arsehole. I'm not going to seek women out in the street and point at them and go, look how silly you look. However, if I'm asked my opinion on said garment, I'm going to tell you what I think, and that's my right, and that's what freedom of speech should protect. Should be able to speak my mind. Shouldn't be able to harass or intimidate. And I actually think, I mean, you are allowed to insult people, but I think that's rude. I think if you go out your way to insult somebody based on their appearance for no good reason. I mean, if you're having a fight, all bets are off. You can say whatever you want about that person's appearance as far as I'm concerned.
And their mum.
And their mother, especially the mum. But otherwise, just be a decent person. It's not that difficult, your mum.
I mean, I don't like it myself, but I've never gone up to someone wearing a garment saying, "The fuck are you wearing? You're fucking ugly."
Yeah.
I mean, nobody does that.
Now send this letter.
Oh, we have one. I know how much you both love lycra. Duh. Would you rather be forced to wear a burqa whenever you leave the house, or only be allowed to wear your most flattering, sexy cycling shorts indoors?
Is that a reference? Is that the faith school that banned mothers turning up wearing lycra?
Yeah.
No outrage about that.
Yeah, no outrage about like Jewish schools enforcing their orthodox codes on people who don't even study at the bloody school.
You know what I think is almost opening a portal to hell? An indicator of the end times. Women doing shopping in the pyjamas.
Oh my god, I actually saw...
That's a scourge on our society.
I saw two girls walking in pyjamas on the street, and they were wearing bathrobes. I was like, seriously, you're walking out with a fluffy gown? What is wrong with you?
Yeah. So now we have just took the piss out of women there for what they choose to wear, and no radars were alerted to our bigotry and or racism or our intolerance, yet you give the same treatment to a equally or even more ridiculous garment, and all of a sudden it's a national incident where the police are actually considering whether or not it's a hate crime.
Oh my god.
The police made a statement. I mean, thankfully they said there wasn't enough there for it to be considered a hate crime, but they received sufficient amount of complaints that they had to comment on it. Let me see, what else have we got? Oh, so David Lakeland's asked, I'd like to hear your opinion on the whole JC debate, not Jesus, the other deity. What more do you think he can get away with before either the moderate Labour MPs or his party have had enough? That's a great question, but because we're so on the ball, I think we've pretty much covered everything there already on that one.
Yeah, I think we covered that. I think, I mean, he could probably murder a three-legged puppy on the streets and get away with it. Actually, no, that just might be the turning point.
It is one of them things, because I think people in America are repeating this same mistake. They're finding something outrageous that Trump has done or said or been associated with and ran with it to no effect. And this happens about once an hour. I think it's once an hour. I did a scientific study on this, and Donald Trump says something stupid, does something stupid, or associates with something stupid at least once an hour. And normally, for any normal politician or normal movement, that would probably signal the end of their time in government, not Donald Trump. So we've got to stop going for Donald Trump this way. We've got to think of better ways to get Donald Trump out. And I think it's the same with Jeremy Corbyn. People are so wedded to the idea he's a good man and he's the right man and he's going to bring positive change with his popular policies on the NHS, student loans, the banks, utilities, our trains, etc. That they're just completely wedded to these things to the point where it doesn't matter what's said or done. It's a smear. it's the media coming for him, or depending on how far in you are, it's the Jews.
Yeah, it's always Jews.
No Jews, no news.
Yeah.
All right. Is there any more questions on Twitter?
I think that's it.
Is that it? You're a disgrace, audience. You're a disgrace.
I mean, we usually get more questions than this. And to be fair, most of them are crap, but that's not the point.
That's not the point. To be fair, I tweeted really late. So, yeah, it's my fault. That whole disgrace thing, I take that back. I apologise.
You're the disgrace.
I did not lay the disgrace comment, Iram. I was in the vicinity of the disgrace comment when it was made. I was there to make a point about all things that are disgraceful, not just my audience. I hope I'm clear on that point.
No.
You're not buying it, are you?
No.
Okay, moving on swiftly.
Oh, what about Asians and sex?
Sorry, excuse me. Where are you going with this? Yes, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the data that shows that Asian attitudes in Britain towards sex are overtly conservative, and that's a surprise because...
It's not. It really isn't. I don't know why people are shocked. I mean, Asians are known to be socially more conservative, and the data finds that even the younger ones, there's no major difference between the younger and the older.
Yeah, I've always found that really strange, because I always thought that the more conservative and dogmatic practices of people from sort of a South Asian descent who are culturally Muslim, I thought they tend to die out with the younger generation. But what we're seeing is they're not only increasing or being reinforced to no change. So that's concerning, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think they're just Muslims. I think it's Asians across South Asia. So it includes Hindus and Sikhs, I think.
Right.
And when they were asked about their behaviour to fit in, about 80% said their cultural traditions were dying out. And I think it's because they live in tight-knit communities, and religious and cultural teachings will say that you need to be married before you have sex, that homosexuality is wrong, same-sex marriage is wrong, all of that. So it's actually not that surprising, to be honest. It's concerning, but not shocking.
It's strange though, because it kind of points to how insular some of these communities can be, because if you look at attitudes in Britain in general towards the same things, they're increasingly more progressive. Whenever I'm in the company of somebody who seems like they're using outmoded language towards ethnic minorities or homosexuals, or have outdated attitudes towards it, they're usually of the elder generation, and it's uncomfortable for everyone involved. You know, it's an anomaly to be open about them kind of things. So what you seem to find is the younger generations are more open-minded. I mean, I'm of a generation where I've grown up with gay people and people of different backgrounds and races and religions. So it's not a novelty to me the way it is to some people of older generations. So it's perfectly normal to me. And so what we're seeing is we're seeing young people from these groups you just mentioned growing up in the same environment, Britain, in the 21st century, yet coming away with very different attitudes. And I think that can only be explained by these very insular cultures that are a product of British attempts at multiculturalism.
Yeah, and I think the other problem is that a lot of Asian people have to live with so many contradictions. Like, they live in the West, they've grown up here, and part of them wants to be like everyone else, but then they have their family, their culture, and their religion that's telling them something slightly different. And sometimes you'll find them, sometimes you think they're quite liberal appearance-wise, and then you find out when you speak to them that actually it's a little bit more complicated than that.
It's funny because I don't know how I'd feel. I mean, I suppose it depends on your character. When I travel, I try and strip away as much Englishness as I can, and try and get in the groove wherever I am and try and experience things and not. But then I know some people who will buy like England shirts to travel somewhere. Do you know what I mean? Or they'll seek out the English bar, or they'll make a point. Their Englishness will increase in environments that are not predominantly English, if this makes any sense. It's almost like there's an extra commitment to it when you're a fish out of water. And I don't know if there's a little bit of that played into it. They're trying to desperately hold on to a familiar culture to the point where you amplify it to overcompensate for being a minority. I don't know if that really poor pop psychology I've just laid out makes any sense whatsoever.
I mean, there might be some truth to it, but it's also, you know, the families are much closer. You know, your family's really important, and what they teach you has more of an impact than what you're going to learn outside.
Apart from your mum.
Yeah. Wait, what?
Yeah, maybe. Could well be. So, I mean, that's concerning because this is the next generation. These are the new people. These are our new legislators, our new public servants, our new managers, our new members of society, our new parents. So that's what the worry is, that it seems to be a backwards step in. And then we have to point out, as always, even though it should be obvious by now, we don't mean all Asians, all Hindus, all Sikhs. Well, yeah, definitely all Sikhs. No, I'm only kidding. We don't mean all Sikhs. So, I mean, obviously, this is statistically significant data within particular groups. I mean, obviously, you're of the Asian persuasion. And barely, yeah, just it's somewhere on the Dulux scale. I'm not sure. We'll have to hash this out next time we meet. So, and you take the opposite view on the majority of these things from a liberal standpoint. So it's just interesting that the dominant opinions within them groups tend to be non-progressive.
I mean, it might change within the next generation, you don't
Hopefully.
know. Or maybe, yeah, I'm hoping so. It's just, when change happens within our communities, it's just at a much slower rate than everyone else.
Lazy.
Yeah, that's that as well.
I mean, I did have something else that I thought I might bring up, but now I'm not so sure I can do it justice, or if I even want to do it justice. But now I've said this, I'm going to have to say it, Anna. Alex Jones.
As in, like, the mouthy twat.
That's exactly it, yeah. He's a big American... I'm trying to be diplomatic. He's a complete fruitcake, absolute nutcase, lunatic, conspiratorial nutbag. He is so far gone. It's almost performance art to watch him. I mean, he's so far gone. I don't know who the people are who take him seriously, who do tune in each week to watch him, who aren't doing it for the entertainment value. I don't know who these people are, but if they exist, I think they shouldn't be allowed to drive or operate heavy machinery. But he's a lunatic, essentially. Now, I mean, it depends. Is he a lunatic? Because he's made a case in court during proceedings once that this is he's a showman, he's an entertainer, and the majority of what he does is an act. Sort of a character, but I mean, he says some of the most ridiculous, crazy, and to me offensive and horrible things about real life events. I mean, the reason we're talking about it is because he's been kicked off YouTube, he's been kicked off Spotify and iTunes, so his podcasts have gone from there, and his show's gone from YouTube. Now, the argument is that he's violated their terms and conditions. I think some people have pointed out that he's incited violence, and I've not seen it. I wouldn't be surprised because, like I say, he's a lunatic who oversteps the mark all the time. But my question is, I mean, I made a point at the time, and I don't really know how I feel about this. I'm not going to shed any tears for Alex Jones not being able to shout on YouTube because he's got other avenues. It's not necessarily a free speech issue. But I think, is there a concern to be had there about big, large, faceless corporations controlling what we can and can't hear from, you know, extreme political viewpoints? Where do you fall on the whole Alex Jones InfoWars banning?
I don't care that much about Alex Jones. I think private companies have the right to sort of ban people from giving them a platform. I always find that the best way to challenge these people is just to expose their arguments.
Yes, I mean, his entire brand. Yeah. His entire brand is there's a big conspiracy in the main media to shut down conservative viewpoints. And what's just happened? Big media corporations have just shut down what he considers to be conservative viewpoints. And it's not the end of him. He's got other avenues. People will seek him out elsewhere. It's just as Tommy Robinson suddenly just disappeared just because Twitter banned him. So I don't know what purpose it serves in the long run. But I do think that you can say the private companies, sure, and they have the right to ban whoever they want. I completely agree with that. But I don't think we should underplay as well the cultural impact something like YouTube has in terms of an information service, in terms of a news service. Can CNN and the BBC and Sky compete with YouTube views? I don't think so. They're a dominant platform that shape discourse. And they're more than just a private company uploading videos. Same with Twitter. It's become something much more than that. Revolutions have been organised on Twitter. It's something bigger than a private company's pet project now. It seems not to be in their hands in that sense. So, I mean, could it get to a point now where if we're just okay with this happening, that one day it might, I mean, this is the slippery slope argument, one day it might just be somebody who's worth listening to, who has sound views, but they just go against the orthodoxy? Or is it because Alex Jones is a raving nutbag who deserves everything that comes to him?
I think, I think that's it. I think there's only so much you can give a platform to someone. If they're deliberately spreading false information, then I don't think they should be allowed to do that. So
I'm not going to shed a tear for Alex Jones. I don't care. I wasn't a subscriber. I've seen numerous clips of him, and they're always sent to me under the guise of, look what this idiot's done. Some student think tank contacted me, it might have been over a year ago. They was compiling a database of people who they considered worthy of following or engaging with, and they had me listed as one, and they wanted to ask me, who do you think, I think it was 3 people, who do you think is worth listening to? Who do you disagree with but who you think is worth listening to? And who do you think is not worth listening to at all? And I think for the person I put forward for worth listening to, I think I put Sam Harris. For the person I put forward who I said I didn't agree with but thought was worth listening to, I think I put Jeremy Corbyn. It was a toss up between Corbyn and Owen Jones. And that's because, obviously, I don't think everyone's 100% wrong all of the time.
Well, Owen Jones is like 95
point something, yeah. I remember on another show you said it's very difficult to be wrong all the time, but Owen Jones somehow manages it. So, yeah, but I do think, you obviously, if the people of opposing political viewpoints who are dominant in them areas, it's worth listening to them, because you don't want to become stuck in an echo chamber. And I definitely, as my suggestion for someone who's not worth listening to ever at all, I put Alex Jones forward. So that's how I feel about him. I mean, what happens is when you put your opinion forward and say, I don't think we should be too quick to celebrate the shit canning of massive channels, because I have concerns about corporate entities that don't answer to anyone deciding what we can and can't see. People will use that to say that I'm defending Alex Jones, and them two things are not the same. I think you can be quite balanced on this opinion, still understand what a complete lunatic he is, and be concerned about huge companies that control a lot of what we see and hear already having more control over it. That's how I feel. But fuck Alex Jones. I think I'm clear on that.
I mean, yeah, I see your point. I just think at the same time, no one would publish what Alex Jones says because it's incorrect.
Who's going to keep us up to date on what the lizard people are getting up to now? These lizard people walking amongst us, laying wreaths. It's madness. And
I think Alex Jones is kind of like that preacher guy in Market Street in Manchester that just raves on and on about Jesus and hell, and people just walk past. I think that's what we should do. We should just metaphorically walk past Alex Jones.
Okay, I mean, but so here's the question then. So say if this religious fundamentalist is a Christian, he's got some very squishy, lovely, warm feelings towards certain passages in Leviticus about a man should not lie with a man, and he wants to publicly shout about them. I think that's his right. He should be able to do that. There has been instances actually where the police have cautioned or arrest people for that, and I'm against that. I think he should be able to read from his scripture.
I think he should be able to read from it, but why the fuck has he got a megaphone? That's noise pollution.
That is. So there's one guy doing that in a crowded area. I don't know what the footfall is, what he's going to reach. Now imagine he does the same thing but on his YouTube channel and he gets millions and millions of subscribers. Shouldn't he be banned? He's inciting violence.
Well, that is... No, if he's inciting violence,
Well, he's saying gay should be
different.
stoned.
Yeah, if he's saying gay
But that's
should
what
be stoned...
Leviticus says. So he's basically quoting from Leviticus. So therefore, he would have to be banned for the violating terms and service of inciting violence, which would mean that YouTube are now banning people reciting from their religion, or YouTube are not banning them and making a special allowance for people who espouse hateful and violent rhetoric under the guise of religious conviction. So that's a tricky spot for them, really.
Yeah, it is. I guess they had a reason, though, with Alex Jones. I mean, there's no smoke without fire. But then again, that's what the mainstream media want you to think.
Yeah. I'm not going to shed a tear. I'm just worried about what the ramifications might be further down the line, and we shall see. We're already seeing a lot of people being banned from public platforms under very dubious reasoning. I think we've spoke about Tommy Robinson getting banned on Twitter. I don't think that was just. I think that was completely silly and wrong-headed. But we shall see how that unfolds. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up at all?
Nah, I'm good.
Iram, where can people go to find out some more of your wonderful work?
Well, you can find it at sedar.org. That's SEDAA.org.
Isn't that Persian for voice?
Oh my God, how did you know that?
Yeah, I mean, I am a man of the world, Iram, and I've been dabbling in the fine Persian language of late. I opened the Persian dictionary and just opened it at random, just hit a word, and there it was.
Really?
Sedar.
How do they say thank you and good night in Persian?
Two things about that. I've only learned one word, and the second word is my Persian dictionary is downstairs, so I wouldn't want to keep you waiting. So next time I shall have that ready for you, for sure. Mm-hmm.
Great.
All right, let's check out sedar.org. Follow the Imram Shazamatron on Twitter at Iram_Ramzan. Iram, it's been a pleasure. This is always amazing fun.
I know.
Okay, have a good one. Speak to you soon. Thank you for listening to the Godless Spellchecker podcast. The podcast is a one-man operation, produced in my spare time away from my day job, and I love making it for you. If you enjoy what you hear, please consider lending some support. The show is entirely listener supported. I don't sell anything, I don't run ads, and given the alternative and unpopular focus of my content, it's very unlikely to find a sponsor. So there are a number of ways you can support and chip in and help improve the show and give me more time to produce more content. You can become a patron supporter and pledge a monetary amount per month or per episode by visiting patreon.com/gspellchecker. If you can't lend monetary support right now, don't worry, there's other ways you can help the podcast too. You can share it on your various social media networks, or take a moment to leave a review wherever you listen to it. Your support is massively appreciated. Thank you. Think we've all learned something here today?